Libra, this person is returning, and this is the sign you should pay attention to. Libra is not about forgiveness, it's not about second chances. It's about that specific, silent, almost imperceptible moment when Libra's entire body changes temperature before any words are spoken, before the message arrives, sometimes even before the phone blinks. Have you ever felt that? That kind of tension that isn't anxiety, but isn't peace either, as if the air around you suddenly became heavier or more charged, for no apparent reason. And then, hours later, or days later, that person shows up. Everyone looks at it and says, "Oh, Libra has intuition," as if it were a vague superpower, a mystical gift without explanation. But that's not it. What happens with Libra is much more precise than generic intuition. It's almost mechanical. It's an internal system of emotional reading that has been calibrated over years, by every relationship it has built, by every disappointment it has absorbed with elegance, by every time Libra has had to rebalance everything inside while smiling on the outside. And it is precisely this system that will be at the heart of everything you will understand today. Because there's a very common belief about Libra that needs to be dismantled now. The belief that Libra leaves doors open, that Libra forgives easily, forgets quickly, keeps the other person in their heart indefinitely, as if keeping someone in an emotional waiting room. That's not Libra, that's what it seems like from the outside. What happens inside is different. Libra closes doors. It closes them with such silent elegance, so without drama, so without a final speech or cover, that sometimes Libra itself doesn't realize it has closed them. Life goes on. Balance is restored. Things fall back into place. And suddenly Libra is fine, not because it pretended, but because it genuinely rebuilt its own inner state. Then someone returns. And here's the thing that nobody explains properly. It's not the door that opens first. It's a frequency. It's like when you have a stringed instrument in one room and in another room, someone plays an identical note. The instrument vibrates on its own, without being touched. Not because you want it to, because it's in the nature of strings to resonate with what is familiar to them. Libra resonates. And that resonance is the first sign. It's not weakness. It's not a relapse. It's information. The problem is that almost no one teaches Libra how to read this information correctly. Almost no one says that tremor you feel when her name appears on the screen, that change of pace that happens before you decide whether to respond or not. That's not about her. That's about you. It's about the internal state that her presence used to generate in you, and understanding the difference between these two things changes absolutely everything. Because Libra doesn't hold on to people. That's what it seems like, but it's not what happens. What Libra holds on to are feelings of balance. They are internal states. They are those specific configurations of well-being, of flow, of feeling whole, that certain people once helped to create. Libra's emotional archive doesn't have names. It has frequencies. It has textures. It has that specific feeling of when everything was in its right place at the same time. So when someone from that archive reappears, what Libra feels isn't longing for the person. It's the echo of a state that once existed. It's the body recognizing a frequency that was once home. And that's exactly it. That's where Libra needs to stop. This is where the real signal begins to speak, not about the other person, but about what's inside you, here and now. What you feel isn't about her. It isn't about him. It's about you. It's about the inner state you still carry. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose. It's not a book about relationships. It's a book about the most sophisticated instrument Libra possesses and almost always underestimates: the ability to read oneself accurately without getting lost in the harmony one seeks to create for everyone around them. It talks about how to transform this internal antenna, which vibrates before any word is spoken, into genuine clarity, not just another cycle of doubt. How to distinguish real connection from the echo of a balance that once existed. You are now in one of those rare moments, one where something has stirred within you before you've even decided what to do. Still open, still processing. The mind is still trying to understand what the body has already registered. This state is precisely the best way to receive what this material has to offer. Don't wait for perfect clarity to act. It rarely arrives before the action. The link is in the first pinned comment, but be aware this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy, and before we continue, write in the comments. When did you first feel that something had changed within you before you consciously knew that person was coming back? Was it a dream, a bodily sensation, a thought that appeared out of nowhere? Tell me about it. There is a paradox at the heart of Libra's nature that takes years to become clear. Libra is the sign of partnership, of connection, of the other. All astrological mythology confidently states this, and it's true, but it's an incomplete truth. And it's precisely this incompleteness that creates the biggest blind spot in Libra's emotional life. Because when you observe Libra more closely, you realize that what Libra truly seeks in another is not the other person themselves. It's a specific version of themselves that only appears under certain conditions. It's that state of flow, of inner clarity, of feeling whole and present, that certain connections can activate in a way that is much more difficult to access alone. The other acts as a catalyst, as a mirror. Someone whose presence helps Libra find themselves in a way that doesn't depend on willpower, but on resonance. This is not weakness. This is not emotional dependence. This is sophistication, but it comes at a huge cost when it is not understood. The cost lies in the confusion between the catalyst and the source. When Libra feels that sense of completeness within a relationship, they tend to attribute it to the other person, when in reality what happened was an internal activation. And when the relationship ends, what Libra loses isn't exactly the other person. They lose access to that state. They lose the frequency. They lose the shortcut to a version of themselves that seemed more fluid, more alive, more at peace. Think of a compass. The compass points to magnetic north, not geographic north, and it works. It points to something completely real. But if you don't understand that what it's registering is a field force, not a physical destination, you could spend years walking in the indicated direction with the wrong map in your hand. Libra walks with someone else's map when, in reality, what they need is their own map. And that's why when someone returns, the most important question isn't, does this person deserve a second chance? That's a valid question, but it's the second question. The first question, the one Libra rarely asks, but the only one with a reliable answer is, what internal state was I in when I was with this person, and is that still the state I need now? When Libra manages to ask this question and endure the silence of the answer, what emerges is not a decision, it's information. Information about where the real balance lies, and where there is only the memory of a balance that once existed. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. There are 3 signs that Libra almost always ignores. 3 pieces of information that the body itself offers immediately after contact with someone who has returned. Information that is more reliable than any mental analysis Libra might construct about the situation, no matter how sophisticated and well-founded that analysis may be. The first sign is the quality of the inner silence immediately following contact. Not the silence after the entire conversation has been processed, not after the messages have been answered, not after Libra has rationalized everything. The silence of that immediate, almost instinctive moment, which exists for a fragment of a second before the mind kicks in. This silence has a temperature, and the temperature registers something simple. Did it quiet you down or disturb you? Did it weigh you down or lighten you up? Did something become lighter inside or denser? This first fragment of a second is the most honest thing Libra will have in the whole situation, and it is precisely this fragment that Libra most often ignores, because it is too short, because the mind has already arrived first, because there is a habit of processing instead of simply feeling. The second sign is the perception of immediate physical space. The space Libra inhabits changes in quality depending on the emotional presence it carries. It's subtle, but it's real. After contact with someone who has returned, observe the surrounding environment. Does the room seem smaller, more closed in, more charged with some tension that wasn't there before? Or does it seem more open, more breathable, as if there were more space to exist? This is not imagination. It's not mysticism without substance. It's Libra's nervous system communicating something that the mind hasn't yet finished formulating. Libra has a deep connection with space, with aesthetics, with the environment, with the quality of the surrounding air. This is not superficiality. It's a form of intelligence, and when this sense begins to register a change after an emotional connection, it's providing information worth listening to. The third sign is the most subtle and paradoxically the most revealing of all, the weight or lightness of the breath. Literally, the breath. Libra breathes differently depending on their actual emotional state. Not the declared state, not what Libra thinks they should be feeling, but what is really happening in the deepest layers. After contact with someone who has returned, observe their breathing for a few minutes. Is it shorter, more restrained, as if the chest needs space it doesn't have? Or is it more open, more regular, as if the body knows it can relax a little? When all three signs point in the same direction, when the inner silence quiets, the space opens up, and breathing becomes easier, this isn't longing deceiving Libra. This isn't desire disguised as information. It's a genuine reading about a connection that may have true substance, not just familiarity. When the three signs point in different directions, or when one contradicts the other, that is also information. Information that requires time and observation, not an immediate decision. And then there's a specific point where this system, however precise it may be, begins to fail. Libra knows this point intimately, even if it has never named it as such. It's the moment when the internal noise becomes louder than the signs. When hope begins to interpret information instead of simply receiving it. When Libra starts wanting the signs to say one specific thing, and begins to read everything through this filter of what it wants to be true. A musician who loves a melody so much that they begin to force their instrument to play it, even when the instrument isn't tuned for it. They start pressing strings that shouldn't be pressed. They try sounds that aren't natural. They force passages that would jump easily if the instrument were in its natural state. And little by little, the instrument that was precise and sensitive begins to go out of tune precisely in the places where it was once most perfect. Libra does this to its own perception system. It does this when the hope for a return is too great. When the memory of how good everything was, of how everything seemed in its right place, screams louder than the clear information of what is happening in the present. The result is always a second disappointment, which is almost always heavier than the first. Because the first disappointment happens when something ends, when a connection is severed. The second disappointment happens when Libra tried to return, ignoring its own signals, and realizes later that the balance it sought wasn't there, that what returned wasn't the connection, it was only its familiar form, the outline without the content. And that That difference between the form and the content of a connection is the thing that Libra finds hardest to accept. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. Libra's recalibration after ignoring its own signals isn't dramatic. It's not a decision made in a moment of sudden lucidity. It's not a turning point. It's not a specific day when everything becomes clear. It's a silent process that happens in layers, like the slow return of an instrument to its correct pitch, one string at a time, patiently, without forcing the process. The first layer is recognition without judgment. Libra needs to honestly look at the moment when they chose to interpret rather than simply receive the signal, at the moment when hope spoke louder than direct perception, and do so without turning that recognition into evidence that something is fundamentally broken within themselves. Ignoring one's own signal is not a character flaw. It's not weakness. It's what happens when someone who was genuinely made for connection tries to find peace within a connection that, at that moment, no longer offered it. The second layer is the distinction between memory and the present. The balance that existed before was real. The feeling of completeness that Libra experienced in that relationship was genuine, not invented. But it belonged to a specific configuration. Two people at a specific moment in a meeting of frequencies that truly existed. This meeting cannot be recreated in identical terms. At most, it can evolve into something new. And new, by definition, will not seem identical to what existed before. Libra sometimes rejects the new precisely for this reason, because it doesn't recognize the frequency, because it doesn't yet have an emotional memory of that state. Because what is new doesn't bring with it the feeling of home that the familiar brings, and it confuses the absence of familiarity with the absence of value. But home for Libra, it's not a place in the past. It's an internal state that can be rebuilt with new configurations from new starting points. The question isn't whether this new state will be as good as what was before. The question is whether it will be honest, whether it will be real, whether you will speak the truth instead of just repeating a familiar form. The third layer, the most difficult of all, is trusting the instrument again. After going out of tune, there is a deep hesitation, a distrust of one's own signals. A voice that asks, what if I'm interpreting again? What if what I'm feeling now isn't reliable either? This is the moment when Libra needs the most patience with themselves. Because the instrument didn't break, it became confused, and the confusion passes with time when Libra stops demanding immediate clarity and begins to simply observe, without an agenda, without haste, without the pressure of needing to decide before understanding. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. Ultimately, the signal Libra should pay attention to when someone returns your call isn't in the message received. It's not in the carefully chosen words, the gesture made at the right moment, the explanation that finally makes sense, or the apology that sounded different this time. It's in the moment afterward, in the silence that follows the contact, before any analysis, before any interpretation. It's at the internal temperature of that first second. Libra carries within itself one of the most refined systems of emotional perception in the entire zodiac. An instrument built and calibrated over years of navigating between its own inner self and the world of others. Years of encounters, of connections that lasted, of connections that ended, of balances built and rebuilt with patience and elegance. This instrument is not infallible, but it is profoundly honest. And honesty for Libra is worth more than any certainty borrowed from the outside. When someone returns, the real invitation isn't to make a decision about the other person. The invitation is to listen to oneself with the same attention and kindness that Libra offers to everything and everyone around them. with the same quality of presence that Libra is able to give to the world. Give it to yourself. Because the person returning isn't the most important test right now. The most important test is always the same for Libra in any situation involving connection and choice. Can you listen to what you yourself are saying before deciding what to do? If the answer is yes, if Libra can, even for a moment, silence the inner noise and hear the clear signal, then it doesn't matter which path is chosen. Any direction taken from that place will carry clarity. It will carry honesty. It will carry the only kind of balance that, for Libra, truly lasts. And lasting balance isn't one that never wavers. It's one that, when it wavers, knows how to return to its center. Not because someone from the outside helped, but because Libra has learned over time and with each return and each departure to recognize where its own center lies. This center is the sign. It always has been. Libra just needed to learn to trust that what it feels before thinking isn't confusion. It's the instrument functioning the way it was tuned, with precision, with elegance, with the quiet beauty of someone who knows that balance isn't found out there. It's built in here, one perception at a time.